Welcome to this In Conversation video from the Payment Systems Regulator. My name is Mike Chambers. I'm a Senior Advisor here at the PSR, and today we're in conversation with Oliver Hanmer from the Supervisory function of the PSR. Oliver, let's just start off with an introduction. Can you just tell me a little bit more about you and your role, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike. I'm Oliver Hanmer, Head of Supervision and Compliance Monitoring at the PSR. I've been here for just over 18 months, tasked with setting up a new division and introducing for the first time into the PSR a supervisory function.
So Oliver, 18 months into the role, having set up the function, I'm really interested in some of those experiences that you've had over the 18 months. What are the first things that you found?
So it's been a really interesting challenge and quite a unique one to be asked to set up a new function from scratch. I've prioritised establishing strong external relationships with those that we regulate and those that we come into contact with to help them understand the purpose of supervision for the PSR, which is different to supervision that might exist in other sectors, and also to think about how supervision within the PSR adds to the wider regulatory toolkit.
So in that context, we hear so much about firms being regulated, particularly at the moment. It's very much in vogue in the conversation. Why is it important that payment systems are also regulated?
Well, the PSR is an economic regulator, and therefore we've got a particular focus on ensuring that, in this case, the payment systems market is operating effectively. And therefore, the role of payment systems operators is critical to that. And it's right, therefore, that we have an enduring strategic relationship with payment systems operators, and we set very clear expectations upon them. And in doing that, we then enable the market to function effectively.
So Oliver, in terms of supervising the payment systems that are in the responsibility of the PSR, I'm really interested just to drill down in terms of value and benefits. As a supervisory function, what values and benefits do you bring to the payments ecosystem, but particularly to those organisations that you supervise?
So I think there are three benefits that come from supervision for payment systems operators. The first is a mechanism to set very clear expectations upon them and to hold them to account in respect of those. The other is to be able to set very clear, to be very clear about what our priorities are outside of the delivery of policy-specific interventions, but more broadly how that fits into the wider strategy of the PSR. And I think the third is to understand risks and opportunities out in the market through regular engagement from a supervisory perspective to ensure that our regulation is targeted to where it's most needed, that it's delivering the outcomes that we were hoping for.
The government's got a really strong growth agenda at the moment, and from a supervisory function within a payment systems regulator, I wonder if you could perhaps share some views that you've got in terms of how you can reduce the regulatory burden and feed into that growth agenda.
So let me start first of all talking about the role of regulation in promoting growth and reducing wider regulatory burden. So I'm a big believer in proportionate and flexible regulation, and I see supervision therefore as creating a relationship through which you can influence change in behaviour so that more formal directive regulation isn't needed. And I think that softer approach to regulation, while still having some teeth, is important in giving confidence to industry to continue to innovate. In terms of regulatory overlap, well, we work very closely with the bank and with the FCA to ensure that we minimise regulatory overlap as much as we can. And I think we've made some really good progress there in setting out very clearly what our role is versus the role of the FCA and the Bank of England in relation to financial services regulation. And I see supervision as playing a key part in that.
So Oliver, that's a perfect segue into my last question for you. Given the recent announcements about the future of the PSR, I'm interested in what you think the supervisory priorities will be for the next 12 to 18 months for the PSR.
So the recent announcement on consolidation of PSR into the FCA is a pragmatic next step towards simplifying financial services regulation. But at the same time, Treasury has been clear that the PSR and its remit continues to be important to wider regulation of the payments ecosystem. So in effect, it's business as usual for the PSR. Firms should continue to engage with us in the way that I've outlined already, and we will continue to deliver against the commitments that we have made.
Thanks, Oliver. We started the conversation talking about your first 18 months in the role and establishing the supervisory function, and we finished off thinking about the next 12 to 18 months in terms of the changes in the regulatory landscape. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today.
Thanks very much, Mike.